still quiet from the tires garage, and with 37 minutes to go, he's quickly running out of time to find a rhythm through Bucine. Szabo is finally rolling out onto the Red Lineo, but he's already burned nearly half this session sitting in the pits.
He better get his head in the game quick. There's no substitute for track time when you're starting from zero this late in the hour.
Walters is finally on the move, creeping through San Donato, but he's got a mountain of setup work to clear in these last 36 minutes.
He's going to be fighting the car balance all session if he doesn't get a representative flying lap in soon.
Tyus is finally out, but he's taking it very gingerly through Quarantayo.
He's just finding his marks, but at this pace, he won't be gathering any useful telemetry for his engineer.
Walters is still circulating slowly, clearly trying to get a feel for the surface temp before he puts any real load on the car.
He's overthinking it. At this stage, you just need to commit to the racing line and let the car settle.
Nadine finally rolling through Podium, but he's got nothing on the board with barely 35 minutes left on the clock.
He's missed the track evolution. The rubber is down, and the cars that went out early have already moved the goalposts on braking points.
Norton is finally through Luco, but he's still cruising on his installation lap while the rest of the field has already started shaving tenths off their sectors. Norton is still just finding his feet through Quarantayo, but he's running out of time to actually push the limits of this chassis. Szabo is looking hooked up out there, clocking a 151.381 that puts him firmly in P2. Walters is still searching for a clean run through Poggio Secco, but he's got absolutely nothing to show for it yet.
He's wasting valuable window time. The longer he drags this out, the more he's compromising his own qualifying prep.
Sabo is still sitting pretty in second, holding that 151.38 one benchmark, while the rest of the field struggles to knock him off the front row. Norton is still yet to post a time, meaning he's essentially invisible to the timing screens with barely half an hour of practice remaining. Geoghegan is still sitting in the pits, which is a massive gamble considering how quickly the track surface is starting to peak. Constable Barry is still completely absent from the timing sheets, with just over 30 minutes left to find his rhythm. Szabo is still showing great pace through Poggio Secco, holding onto that P2 spot with a 151.381.
He's got the car balanced nicely through those transitions, which is half the battle on this layout.
Geoghegan finally breaks cover onto the Red Alineo, but he's got a massive task ahead to catch up with the pace setters. Constable Barry finally showing his face through the final complex at Bucine.
He's been quiet for a long time. Let's see if he's been sitting on some setup changes or if he's just behind the curve.
Szabo's been bumped down to third, and he's really wrestling with the car through the Savelli corner to try and claw that time back. Tyus has come alive, putting that 151.275 on the board to leap into second as he navigates the Luca complex. Constable Barry is finally putting some heat into the tires for Correntaio, still searching for that first flying lap with less than half the session remaining. Norton finally gets a number on the board with a 151.769, putting him in fourth as he rounds the final corner at Bucine. Gio Keegan has finally found some pace, jumping into P5 with a 151.930.
Better late than never, but he's got to stay out now and refine those braking points if he wants to challenge the top three.
Where did that come from? Walters storms the timing screens with a 150.698 to snatch P2 out of nowhere. Constable Barry finally logs a representative time, a 152.576, that slots him into seventh. Nadine puts a 152.073 on the board, enough to slot him into sixth as the field finally starts to show their hand. Walters is really finding a rhythm now, threading that car through Biandetti as he holds onto a strong second place. Tyus has slipped to fourth, and he looks a bit ragged through Luco, trying to find those lost tenths.
He's fighting the front end, Hal. Probably pushed the entry a bit too hard, and now he's just washing out through the apex.
David Constable Barry is finally out on track, sweeping through the final Bucine corner to start his first timed run of the session. Constable Barry is pushing the limits at Corintaio, but he's still locked in seventh and looking for more pace. Walters is absolutely flying through the final sector, keeping that car tidy through Bucine as he continues to hold P2. Kovarg is still nowhere to be seen on the timing boards, which is a massive headache for the team with under 23 minutes remaining.
He's giving up a huge amount of track evolution. He'll be fighting a car that's nowhere near the optimal window if he doesn't get out there right now.
Tyus is looking much more composed on the entry to San Donato, clearly trying to rectify that mid-corner understeer we saw earlier. And there it is. Norton just vaulted to the top of the standings with a 150.501, knocking Walters off the top spot. Lemrick is finally up to speed on the Redolineo, but starting his run this late is going to make it nearly impossible to dial in a perfect setup before qualifying. Constable Barry finds a decent chunk of time, clicking off a 151.568 to move up to P5. Still nothing from Moll on the timing screens, and with under 20 minutes left, his window to get a representative lap is slamming shut. David Constable Barry puts a 152.756 on the board, enough to slot him into P8.
He's got a bit of a gap to the leaders, but he's finally got a baseline to start chipping away at that deficit.
Norton is showing real precision through Bassine, keeping that car perfectly positioned to defend his spot at the top of the leaderboard. Still silence from Lemrick, and with under 19 minutes left, he's barely got time for more than a couple of flying laps. Norton is holding steady at the top, but the clock is ticking down, and the rest of the field is clearly finding more pace as the track surface matures. Tice is currently P5 with that 151.275, but he's going to need to find nearly 8/10 if he wants to challenge Norton for the top spot. Still absolutely nothing on the board from Lemrick, and at this point, the risk of a traffic jam in the closing minutes is becoming a serious reality. Tice is working hard through Poggio Secco, but he's going to need a massive final sector if he hopes to improve on 5th place. Fannin is finally out on track, sweeping through San Donato, but he's got a mountain to climb with just under 16 minutes remaining. David Constable-Berry is working through the Biandetti sweepers, but he slipped back to 10th and needs to find some serious pace. Mole finally breaks cover on the Rettilineo, but starting his program this late is a massive gamble.
He's missed the peak of the track, Hal. He'll be struggling for grip compared to the guys who put their rubber down 20 minutes ago.
Tyus has just found a massive chunk of time, clicking off a 150.468 to jump all the way up to 3rd. Nadine is struggling for straight-line speed on the Rettilineo, and he's tumbled down to 10th.
He looks like he's trimmed the wing too much. He's fast in the corners, but he's a sitting duck once he hits this long straight.
Norton just dipped into the 1 minute 50 seconds and 0 milliseconds S, extending his lead as he muscles the car through Corntaio.
He is absolutely nailing the trail braking there. That's what's giving him the confidence to carry that much rotation into the corner.
Fovard finally makes his mark, clocking a 150.982 to slot into 7th as he navigates the tight confines of Borgo San Lorenzo. Sabo is really pushing the limits of adhesion through Bucine, currently sitting P5 with that 150.741 as the clock ticks down. Taez is really digging deep on the Retilineo, trying to drag every last kilometer per hour out of the car to bridge that gap to the leaders.
He's got the slipstream if he can time it right, but he needs to make sure he isn't overheating the engine before his final flying lap.
Unbelievable pace from Mol. He's absolutely pinned it through Arrabbiata 2 to jump all the way up to second with a 150.043. Constable Barry is pushing hard through Savelli, but he's still stuck in 8th and really needs to find rhythm if he wants to move up.
He's fighting too much mid-corner understeer to really attack the apex. Until he sorts the front end, he's going to keep leading time in this section.
Fannin is settling into a rhythm now, logging a 151.591 to take over P9 with just over 10 minutes to go. Norton is still the benchmark, holding P1 through San Donato, but he's only got a tiny gap over the hard-charging Mole behind him. Fovarga is trying to find a bit more rotation through Borgo San Lorenzo, but he's still locked in 7th and looking for a way to break into that top 5. Fannin is attacking the San Donato entry again, desperate to find those missing tenths and climb out of 9th place. Sabo is really leaning on the brakes into San Donato, trying to squeeze everything out of that P5 run.
He's being a bit too aggressive with the trail braking, Hal. He's scrubbing off too much mid-corner speed to make it count on the exit. Taez is dancing that car through Podium, but he's still looking at a 2/10 gap to the guys up front. Neil's last lap was a 4:14.653, aiming to shave off some seconds here.
Cormac is rounding out the field in 13th, still trying to get to grips with the technical demands of San Donato.
He's really struggling for stability on entry. It looks like the rear end is just too loose for him to lean on the power early.
Fovargy was putting the power down on the Rettilineo, trying to squeeze every last bit of slipstream out of that drag strip.
He needs to focus on that shift point. If he clips the limiter even a fraction too early, he'll lose the momentum he needs for the next complex.
Castleberry is flat out on the Rettilineo, trying to bridge that gap to the top 7.
He's still struggling with the car balance. You can see him fighting the steering wheel as he tries to keep it pinned in a straight line.
Tyus is really committing through a Arrabbiata 2, eyes locked on the exit curb.
He's got to be careful with the throttle commitment there. Any mid-corner lift, and the car will just snap on him.
Cormac finds a bit more pace with a 154.182, but he's still anchored to the back of the field with only a few minutes left to find a breakthrough. Tyus is really throwing that car into San Donato, desperate to shave off those final few hundredths and challenge the front two. Cormac is still hovering in the 154S, and time is fast running out for him to make any significant dent in that deficit to the mid-pack. Castleberry clips a 10th off his personal best through Savelli, moving the needle slightly in P8 as the clock winds down. David's working hard to get the power down coming out of Porntaio, but that 1 minute, 52 seconds, and 1 millisecond keeps him anchored down in 12th. Fainin is pushing the absolute limits at San Donato, squeezing out a 151.255, but he's still hunting for more to break into that top 8. Niles' last lap was a 150.939, aiming to shave off some seconds here.
As the session progresses, Niall Gagan is dialing in, looking more confident with each lap.
Fovard just lit up the timing screens. A 150.599 moves him all the way up to fourth as he carves through Sabelli.
That's a brilliant sector. He kept his composure when it mattered most, finding the grit that so many others are missing right now.
Now several laps into the session, now Gagan looks to refine their line and timing. Thomas Kruger Dorado has set a best lap time of 151.226 so far.
Thomas is really starting to push now, analyzing every sector for potential improvements.
David's still struggling for balance through Pelagio, and with barely 26 seconds on the clock, he's going to run out of time to improve on P13. Now, several laps into the session, Jody Fannin looks to refine their line and timing. Chris Stokes is on their practice out lap, warming up the tires.
Chris Stokes will be testing the limits, making sure everything's in sync for the faster laps to come.
Engines are waking up here at Mugello, and with a light breeze crossing the track, the drivers are going to have to manage their balance through those high-speed sweepers.
You're not kidding, Hal. That wind plays havoc with the aero platform on these cars, making the rear end feel like a pendulum if you're even a fraction off the racing line.
Constable Barry still hasn't clocked a time, and as he rounds San Donato, he's burning through the remaining 5.5 minutes of this session. Maul is still waiting to put a banker lap on the board as he navigates Luca.
He's taking his time, but with only 5 minutes left, he can't afford to be too precious about finding the perfect gap in traffic.
Fovargue is the latest to leave it late, still showing no time on the board with less than 5 minutes remaining in the session. Neil Constable Barry is finally heading out, but the clock is ticking down fast. He's got just over 4 minutes to put a representative time on the board.
He needs to treat his outlap like a sprint. The tires won't be in the window if he doesn't get some heat into them immediately.
David Constable Barry is finally pouring on the power down the Rettilineo, but he's already burned nearly half this session without a time.
He's under the gun now. Any mistake on this flying lap, and he'll be starting at the back of the grid.
That's a solid 1 minute 52 seconds and 4 milliseconds for David Constable Barry, putting him straight into the top spot with just over 2 minutes to go.
Decent banker, but he was a bit cautious on the entry to the final corner. He's got more time in the car if he trusts the front end a little more.
Thanon is finally pushing hard down the Rettilineo, desperate to get a time on the board with less than 2 minutes remaining.
He's got to nail this. There's no time left for a cooling lap or a second attempt if he gets held up in the traffic.
Stokes is finding more time, trending a tenth faster than his current benchmark as he hunts for a spot on the front row with 90 seconds left. Constable Barry is pushing to improve on his current P9, shaving nearly 2/10 off his personal best.
He needs that improvement. Sitting mid-pack at Mugello is a nightmare when you're fighting for space in those opening corners.
Constable Barry finds half a second to jump into 8th, but with only 12 seconds on the clock, that's going to be his final effort of the session. Norton is charging down the Rettilineo, but he's just a whisker off his own pole time with the clock effectively at 0.
He's keeping it clean, but he's not going to improve that 1 minute 49 seconds and 8 milliseconds. He's got pole position in the bag.
Fannin is absolutely pinned on the run to the line, but the Delta says he is just failing to improve on his personal best.
He is just pushing that little bit too hard on the exit of the final corner, scrubbing off speed he needs for the dash to the flag.
Cormac is hauling that car through Bucine, looking a full second quicker than his previous best, which could be a massive jump up the order as he makes his final charge. Cormac finds a second, but it's still only good enough for P14. He's got to find more pace if he wants to climb out of that midfield logjam.
He's fighting the car through the technical sections, and at a place like Mugello, that just kills your momentum on the main straight.
Constable Barry is on a flyer here, looking nearly 4/10 up as he weaves through the middle sector.
If he keeps that rhythm, he'll comfortably break into the top 10. He's finally got the tires exactly where they need to be.
That effort shaves a bit more off his time, moving Constable Barry up into the top 10 with just over a minute and a half to play with. Kruger Dorado is flying down the main straight, currently 3/10 up on his own benchmark as he eyes a potential move into the top 5.
He's really attacking the exit of the final corner, using every inch of that curb to slingshot himself onto the straight.
Cars are lined up on the main straight at Mugello, and with a light breeze out there, conditions are absolutely perfect for the start of this VVS showdown. Elliot Norton's looking focused on that front row, sitting just behind pole as we wait for the lights.
He's got the pace in that Radical, but he'll need a perfect launch if he wants to snatch the lead before they hit turn 1.
Niall Gagan is right there in the mix, lining up third and looking to show the Pro Class boys he's not just making up the numbers today.
Fovarg is sat in 4th, and in a field this tight, his race is going to be won or lost on how well he manages those cold tires on the opening lap.
Kruger Dorado has a clear view of the row in front from 5th, and he knows a strong getaway here puts him right in the hunt for a podium scrap. Chris Stokes rounds out that third row, needing to find a gap early if he wants to stay in touch with the leaders.
He's a smart operator. He'll be looking to capitalize on any mistakes ahead rather than forcing a move into the first corner.
Joel Emmerich is holding down 7th, eyes locked on the back of Stokes, waiting for that engine note to hit the red line.
Constable Barry has his work cut out from 8th. but that radical loves to dance through these sweeping curves, so he's not out of this yet.
Jody Fannin has a lot of work to do from 9th, but he's one of the quickest in the pro field, and he won't be happy sitting that far back.
David Constableberry needs to watch the car in front like a hawk. Keeping it tidy through the first complex is his only priority right now.
Nigel Walters bringing up the rear of this starting pack, looking to keep his nose clean and capitalize on any chaos ahead. And rounding out the field, Adam Tyus has a long road ahead of him, but grid position is only half the story here.
He's got the best view of the carnage. If it happens, he'll want to pick his way through carefully and keep the momentum up.
Ben Nadine completes our starting grid, and with this many cars fighting for track space, the run down to that first turn is going to be absolute bedlam.
Szabo is hanging back in 14th, but don't count him out. He just needs one clean line through the opening chicane to start picking off positions.
Robert Cormack is our final starter today, and he'll be praying for a clean start to keep his race alive past turn 1. And there he is, pole sitter Martin Moll, looking ice cold at the front of the pack, ready to lead them into the unknown. And they are off, lights out, and we are racing at Mugello, with Moll getting a textbook launch off the line. Moll has absolutely nailed the getaway. He's already got a car length of breathing room as they storm toward the first braking zone.
He's dictating the pace perfectly, keeping the lines tight and forcing Norton to rethink his approach immediately.
Tough start for Constableberry. He slipped back to 11th in that opening scramble.
He got pinched on the inside there, lost all his momentum, and now he's got to deal with the dirty air of the cars ahead.
It's been a rough opening sector for Neil Constableberry, dropping 3 spots back to 11th.
He got bottled up in the mid-pack congestion and just couldn't find the space to muscle his way through that first complex.
Chris Stokes has lost a position in the shuffle, getting crowded out and forced to settle into 7th place for now. David Constableberry is on the move, finding a gap to slide up into 9th.
Smart start from him, staying out of the contact and picking up a couple of spots while everyone else is fighting for the same piece of tarmac.
David Constableberry is doing well to hold 9th, but he has Chris Stokes right in his sights, just 4/10ths up the road. Stokes is glued to the rear diffuser of Kruger Dorado as they power down the Red Alinea, just a 10th between them, and it is absolutely desperate out there. Stokes tried to force the issue, but Kruger Dorado has managed to stretch that gap out to 2/10ths now.
He's keeping it clean, but he's breathing down his neck. One mistake in the chicane, and he'll be side by side.
Norton is right on the gearbox of the leader, just 2/10ths separating them as they hunt down the opening lap rule. Still just 2/10ths in it. Moll is defending his line like a champion while Norton stalks him.
Norton is waiting for Moll to burn his tires on the exit. He knows if he can force a suboptimal line, the top spot is his for the taking.
Adam Tyus is right in the slipstream of Neil Constable-Berry here, only 3/10 back in this battle for ninth.
He's keeping his eyes up, looking for a way around the outside if Constable-Berry makes even the slightest error in this next sequence.
Tyus has lost a bit of momentum there. The gap to Constable-Berry has opened up to half a second.
He needs to close that back up quickly, or he's going to find himself vulnerable to the cars charging up from behind.
Norton has pulled the switch. He's muscled his way into the lead, but Moll is absolutely glued to his bumper, just a 1/10 of a second back as they start lap 2. Moll has slipped back to 3/10 off the lead, the pressure from Norton clearly forcing a small error in that last sector.
He's frustrated, you can tell by his body language in the cockpit. He's trying to overdrive the car to compensate for that gap.
That gap is stretching slightly, now 4/10, as Norton begins to pull away and consolidate his lead. David Constable-Berry is working hard through the Savelli section, looking for a way past Cormac with just 2/10 between them.
He needs to stay calm for these high-speed transitions. If he rushes the entry, he'll just end up with more understeer and lose even more time.
David Constable-Berry has made the move stick, picking up 13th and putting half a second of breathing room between himself and Cormac. Moll is desperately trying to hang on, closing that gap down to 3/10 again as we enter the final 6 minutes of this scrap. No change to the gap, but the intensity is shifting as they head deeper into the lap.
He's biding his time, waiting for Norton to make one small mistake on the exit so he can capitalize on the tow.
Joel Emmerich is flying in fourth, putting immense pressure on Fauvargue with only 3/10 of a second separating them.
He's finding some serious grip in that radical. He's just inches off the rear bumper through the transition. He's definitely looking for a way through.
Lemmerich has drifted back a little. The gap to Fauvargue now out to 6/10 as he loses that crucial toe. Stokes has his hands full in ninth, just 2/10 clear of Tyus, with the pressure really mounting now.
Stokes is holding firm, maintaining that 2/10 margin. But Tyus is relentless. He's testing every single inch of that defensive line.
Tyus has fallen back just a touch. The gap to Stokes now sitting at 4/10 as they fight to close the distance before the clock runs down.
Another 10th slips away from Tyus, who's struggling to stay in that clean air, and the gap is slowly trending the wrong way.
Huge drama for Moll. He's tumbled down to 5th, and he's now desperately trying to hunt down Gagan, just 2/10 adrift.
I don't know what happened back there, but he's got to reset immediately. You can't afford to lose focus at Mugello, or the field will swallow you whole.
Moll has managed to claw his way back ahead, finding a way past Gagan into 4th.
Great recovery. He's got 3/10 of breathing room now, but he's still got a lot of work to do to regain the front-running pace we saw earlier.
Tyus is keeping the heat on Stokes, closing the gap back down to 3/10 as they hammer through lap 4. Tyus is really dialed in now. He's sliced another tenth off that gap and is back within 0.2 of Stokes.
He's finding a much better line through the technical sections now. You can see him timing his run perfectly to get a better drive onto the straight.
Mal is right on the back of Lemrick now, just 0.3 separating them as they battle for that final podium spot.
He's really testing the brakes here, looking for a way to lunge down the inside, but he's got to be careful not to overshoot that apex and lose momentum.
Mal's struggling to stay attached there. The gap to Lemrick has grown by another tenth.
He's pushing too hard on the entry, getting a bit of understeer that's killing his drive off the corner, and Lemrick is just managing that beautifully.
Gagan is keeping it pinned down the Redolineo, hunting down Mal and just 0.3 back as they head into the next technical sequence. Lemrick just pulled a brilliant move. He's up into third and now looking to close that 0.2 gap to Mal ahead. That battle has swung back the other way. Lemrick has lost touch with Mal, and now he's got nearly 0.75 of a second to make it. The battle for 4 is heating up as Niall Keegan tries to catch Joel Lemrich in P4.
You can see that car bouncing around as they ride the curbs. It's a risky move that could end in disaster.
Gagan has clearly found some pace. He's muscled his way into the picture and is now breathing down the neck of Lemrich with only 0.3 in it. It's fascinating to watch these radical State Route 3S navigate Mugello. The aero sensitivity here makes every 0.1 of a second feel like a massive victory.
Oh, absolutely. You feel that dirty air more than almost anywhere else. When you're trailing a car through those long, sweeping right-handers, you're constantly fighting the front end washing out.
Which is exactly why we've seen so much shuffling in the mid-pack. Nobody can seem to maintain the line in that turbulence.
Precisely. I remember racing here, you'd spend half the race just trying to manage your entry speed. To avoid that exact understeer, it's exhausting work.
And yet here we are, still seeing guys like Norton and Mole absolutely hammering it on the ragged edge for the lead.
That's the beauty of it, Hal. Even when the car is fighting you, the best drivers find a way to compromise and keep the momentum alive.
Tyus has lost a bit of rhythm in that last sector. The gap to Stokes stretching out to 0.7 now as the race reaches its closing stages. It's slipping away from Tyus, another 10th drop to Stokes, and he's really going to need a miracle to bridge that 0.8 gap now. Gagan's putting the pressure on, but Lemrick is holding firm, holding on to that third spot with a gap that's widened to 0.7.
Gagan's holding the status quo, but he's not making any progress. He needs to find a different line through the apex to force Lemrick into a defensive error.
Looks like we've had a few incidents out there.
Someone forgot to take their driving lessons. They're making more U-turns than a confused tourist.
Hilarious. I think they might need to call their GPS for directions. Maybe it can help them navigate the track. Gagan is absolutely flying through the Biandetti. He's slashed that gap to just 0.4.
He's finally found the rhythm. He's getting a much better exit onto the back straight. And Lemrick is starting to look very nervous in those mirrors.
He's chipped away another 10th. Gagan is within 0.3 of the podium now.
He is sniffing out a mistake here, putting the car in all the right places to pressure Lemrick into a wide exit.
Tyus has managed to stabilize the gap at 8 tenths, finally matching Stokes on pace, but he's running out of time to mount a real challenge for ninth. Where did that come from? Tyus has found a massive chunk of time and is suddenly all over the back of Stokes. Just 3 tenths in it now. Stokes is under the cosh now. Tyus is breathing right down his neck with only 2 tenths between them as we approach the final stages.
He is going to have to be incredibly defensive through the next complex, because Tyus is looking for every possible opening to squeeze through.
Stokes has just managed to stretch that buffer back out to 3 tenths, giving himself the tiniest bit of breathing room to navigate the next couple of corners. Tyus is relentless. He's back within 2 tenths and just won't let Stokes settle into any kind of rhythm. Norton is just 20 seconds from glory, and with a cushion of nearly a second over Mull, he just needs to keep his head for these final few corners. And there it is. Elliot Norton crosses the line to take a brilliant victory here at Mugello after a masterclass in racecraft. Martin Mull follows him home in second. A strong performance from the pole sitter who just couldn't quite hold off that relentless pace from Norton. And what a stellar drive from Joel Lemrich, carving his way up from 7th on the grid to claim the final spot on the podium. Gagan, Fannin, Kruger-Dorado, and Fovarg round out that top 7 in what was a frantic finish to the closing laps.
Solid points for that group. They kept their noses clean while everyone else was busy trading paint. And that patience really paid off.
Constable Barry, Tyus, Stokes, and Walters crossed the line to complete the top 11.
Stokes and Tyus were fighting right to the wire, but they'll be satisfied to bring those cars home in one piece after such a tight scrap.
And that concludes our field as David Constable Barry, Sabo, Cormac, and Nadine crossed the stripe to wrap up a thrilling run here at Mugello.
Great effort from the back of the pack to stay in the hunt until the very end. They fought for every position on track today.
Engines are roaring here at Mugello, and the air's pretty still, so these drivers have nothing to blame but themselves if they miss their marks.
3-knot wind won't shift these cars on the straight, but the track temperature is the real story. Those rubber temps are going to climb fast once the lights go out.
Greg Sabo is looking hungry in that Radical, sitting right there on the second row.
He's been consistent all weekend, but holding his nerve against the Pro Boys in that State Route 3 is a different beast entirely.
Right behind him, David Constable-Berry is sat in P4, eager to make sure that British Radical doesn't stay behind the Italian for long. Nigel Walters rounds out the top 5. He'll be looking to capitalize on any early squabbles between the two ahead.
He needs a clean getaway. Getting bogged down in the mid-pack here is the fastest way to lose touch with the leaders.
Chris Stokes is lurking in P6, and considering he's in the pro class, he's definitely not going to be happy sitting mid-grid for long.
Tyus in 7th is going to have a busy opening lap. He's got a pro class car breathing down his neck, and he's going to have to be aggressive just to hold position.
Neil Constable-Berry lines up in P8, looking to see if he can keep pace with that Pro-Am entry ahead of him.
He needs to watch his mirrors into turn 1. The pack is going to be incredibly tight, and he's right in the thick of it.
Dominic Fovark sits in 9th, looking to find a gap as the field funnels into that first corner.
He's got a decent starting spot to work with, but he needs to avoid getting caught up in the accordion effect that always happens at the back of this grid.
Jody Fannin has a bit of work to do from P11, but he's in the pro class for a reason.
He'll be looking to thread the needle on the opening lap, just don't overcook it before the tires are up to temp.
Niall Gagan rounds out the field from P12, needing a sharp reaction to avoid being left behind by the pro cars ahead.
From that far back, it's all about surviving the opening complex. If he keeps his nose clean, he'll have plenty of opportunities as the tires start to fade later on.
Martin Moll is way down in P14. He'll be looking to slice through this traffic like a knife.
He's got the pace, but in a field this close, climbing those spots is going to cost him a mountain of tire life.
Elliot Norton completes our lineup in P15. He's got a massive hill to climb if he wants to challenge those pro-class leaders.
He just needs to keep his head down and let the race come to him. It's a long stint at Mugello, and patience is a virtue here.
Ben Nadine has somehow managed to plant that Radical on pole, a massive statement from the AM class driver.
He has clear track ahead of him, but the nerves will be kicking in now. Watching those lights turn red with the entire field waiting behind you is the loneliest feeling in the world.
And they are off. A clean getaway for Nadine, who immediately tries to shut the door on the rest of the pack as they charge toward turn 1. Naden leads them through the opening complex, holding his nerve perfectly under pressure from the pack behind. Tough start for Dorado. He's dropped all the way to the back of the queue.
He's definitely had some contact or a massive off-track moment there. That's going to make for a very long afternoon trying to fight back through that bunch.
Kruger Dorado is really struggling to find his rhythm. After that nightmare start, he's currently dead last.
He's likely nursing a bent steering arm or some aero damage. The car looks a bit twitchy every time he hits a curb.
Cormac has absolutely plummeted down the order, losing 7 spots in the opening scramble.
Big move from Stokes, carving his way up to 4th already. He's clearly not interested in playing nice with the AM class guys ahead.
Stokes is carving his way through the field like a hot knife through butter. He's already up into 4th. Stokes has cleared the pack and is now sitting in third, with Constable Barry glued to his diffuser. There is literally nothing separating them as they dive into the braking zone. Joel Lemrich is hunting down Fannin, just 3/10 the gap between them, and with 9 minutes still on the clock, he's got plenty of time to set up an overtake. That gap to Fannin is holding steady at 3/10. Lemrich is just sitting in his wake right now, waiting for a mistake.
He's smart to stay tucked in. He's getting a massive tow down these straights, but he needs to make sure he doesn't cook his front tires before he makes his move.
Stokes is really leaning on Sabo through Arbiata 1. The gap is down to just 3/10.
This is high-stakes stuff. If he hits the dirty air wrong through that corner, the rear of the Radical will step out instantly, but he's showing incredible commitment to stay that close.
Naden has slipped back to 5th, and now he's got Walters breathing down his neck with just 2/10 between them. Naden has tumbled another 2 spots since we last checked in, and now the gap to Walters has ballooned out to over 1.5 seconds.
It looks like he's lost all his momentum. He's struggling to find grip in the mid-corner, and the car just looks completely unsettled compared to the start.
Lemrich is right on the gearbox of Nadine now, only 2/10 separating them as they fight for 7th.
Nadine's confidence has clearly taken a hit after falling back through the order, and Joel is smelling blood in the water here.
Lemrich has finally dispatched Nadine and climbed up to 7th, but he's right back on the tail of the next car with just 1/10 second in it.
He's absolutely flying now. He's found a bit of rhythm, and he's clearly the faster man out there. He just needs to keep that momentum rolling before he loses his chance.
Nadine's desperate to reclaim that spot from Lemrich, staying within 1/10 second as they start lap 2. That move didn't go Nadine's way, and now he's dropped to 8th, losing over a second to Lemrich, who's clearly found some clean air and pulled away. It's been a total collapse for Nadine. He's fallen all the way back to 10th, over 12 seconds off the pace of Lemrich.
He's completely lost the plot. At this point, he's just fighting the car and trying to bring it home without incident.
Naden's still tumbling down the order, now P11, but he's right on the rear wing of Kruger Dorado as they navigate the Casanova corner. Stalemate in the battle for 10th. Nadine is still stuck in the dirty air of Kruger Dorado's car.
He's trying to trail brake deep into the entry to force a mistake, but he just doesn't have the front-end bite to make it happen right now.
Martin Moll is charging hard now. He's latched onto the back of Lemrich with just 2/10 between them.
Look at the way he's positioning that car. He's forcing Lemrich to take a defensive line, and that's going to compromise his exit speed.
Moll is absolutely glued to him now, just 1/10 second, separating them as he hunts for a way past into 6th. Jody Fannin is holding steady in 4th, but he's got Walters putting him under immense pressure, with only 3/10 between them. Fannin has managed to open that gap just a hair. It's now 4/10, but he's still not out of the woods with Walters right there in his mirrors. Nadine is still fighting for scraps at the tail end of the field, just 2/10 away from Kruger Dorado as they hunt for a way out of the bottom 2. It's gone from bad to worse for Nadine. He slipped another spot to 12th, and that gap to the car ahead has doubled to 4/10.
He looks completely deflated. At this point, he's just logging laps and hoping for a miracle to bring him back into the fight. Martin Moll is back on the prowl, looking for a way past Nigel Walters with only 2/10 separating them. He's been right on the gearbox of the cars ahead all session. He's got the speed. He just needs to find that one gap where Walters leaves the door ajar.
Maul's finding it hard to bridge that extra tenth. The gap is stretching slightly to 3/10 as Walters does a brilliant job of positioning his car to negate the tow. Elliot Norton is absolutely flying down the Red Lineo, locked in a tight battle for 8th, with only 2/10 separating him from Limerick. Norton has successfully climbed a position into 8th, but he's still got Limerick firmly in his sights, holding steady at 2/10.
He's got the momentum now. He caught him, passed him, and he's not letting him breathe. That's how you handle a midfield battle.
Jody Fannin has found himself back in 9th, pushing hard to close that 6/10 gap to Fauvargue ahead. No change in the order for Fannin, and that gap to Fauvargue is stubbornly stuck at 6/10.
He's losing time through the mid-sector. I suspect he's caught in some turbulent air that's hurting his cooling and front-end grip.
Norton is on a serious charge, now up to 7th and pressuring Walters. He's right on his bumper with only 2/10 in it. Fannin is absolutely hunting down Fauvargue now. They're side by side through Corntaio with only 2/10 to play with.
He's got a massive run on him. That's the bravest line I've seen for this section all day.
Fannin just couldn't make that move stick through Corntaio, and now he's fallen back to half a second behind Fauvargue.
He used up all his tire grip on that failed dive. He'll have to back off and cool things down, or he's going to slide even further back.
Joel Lemrich has absolutely surged up the order to P3, but he's got Constable Barry glued to his rear wing with only a 1/10 of a second in it.
This is where the podium gets decided. Lemrick needs to be surgical with his lines, because Constable Barry is clearly looking for any excuse to dive down the inside.
A massive drop for Lemrich, who has tumbled 3 spots to 6th, now over 2 seconds adrift to the podium scrap.
He must have had a moment off track or a massive snap of oversteering. You don't lose that much time at Mugello without something going seriously wrong.
It's all falling apart for Limerick, who has plummeted to 9th, now over 10 seconds behind the leaders. That's a catastrophic slide down the order in just a few laps. Fauvargue is putting everything on the line through Arrabbiata 2, hunting down Walters with just 2/10 separating them as they head into the latter half of the lap. That push through Arrabbiata 2 has cost Fauvargue dearly. He's slipped to 8th, and the gap to Walters has blown out to nearly 2 seconds.
He clearly pushed over the limit there, lost the rear end for a split second, and in this field, that's all it takes to lose your momentum entirely.
Norton is absolutely flying, sitting P4 and putting massive pressure on Constable Barry for that final podium spot, just 2/10 in it.
He's finding grip where others are struggling. Watch his trail breaking into this next turn. He's carrying so much more speed than the car ahead.
Norton has pulled the trigger and snatched 3rd place. He's moved ahead, and now he's got Constable Barry glued to his gearbox.
Brilliant, opportunistic driving. He forced that mistake, and now he's got to defend that line like his life depends on it.
Nigel Walters is right on the tail of Jody Fannin, just 3/10 in it as they hunt down that top 5 finish.
Walters is showing some real patience here. He's taking a slightly wider line to get a better run onto the straight, clearly looking for a clean pass rather than forcing a collision.
Mall has muscled his way into fourth and is absolutely breathing down Constable Berry's neck for the final podium spot with only a tenth of a second between them. Mull's lost a tiny bit of that attacking pressure. The gap's edged out to 3/10 as they continue to scrap for the final step on the podium. Fanon is looking for a way past Mull through the sweeping Quarantaio, keeping the gap tight at 4/10 as they fight for fifth. Still, nothing to separate them. Fanon remains pinned to Mull's bumper, but he just can't find the space to commit to a clean overtake. Constable Berry is desperately trying to hold off Fanon down the red linear, with only 2/10 separating them as they head toward the braking zone.
He's got to be careful not to pinch the apex too hard here. If he misses his mark by an inch, Fanon is going to be right up his inside.
Constable Berry has done a brilliant job to recover third, and he's managed to stretch that cushion over Fanon to 4/10. Fanon is absolutely hounding Mull through Poggio Secco, just 3/10 between them as they look to snatch fourth. Fanon's lost a little ground through the complex. The gap to Mull is pushed out to half a second, which is a bit of breathing room he really didn't want to give up. Mull is right on the rear wing of Constable Berry again, keeping that gap to the final podium spot at just 3/10 as they hunt for the finish. Mull has finally made the breakthrough, snatching third away from Constable Berry, and now he's got to defend that spot with absolutely nothing between them. Constable Berry has plummeted to fifth, and he is immediately looking for a way to fight back against Fovard, just a 10th between them.
He looks like he's really struggling for rear traction now. He had to fight the car coming out of the last corner, and that's going to make him a sitting duck if he doesn't stabilize things.
Chris Stokes has absolutely dominated this race. He's got a comfortable 3.5-second cushion with just 20 seconds of track time left to navigate.
He's been flawless. No drama, just metronomic laps, and he's managed his gap to Norton perfectly to secure this win.
Chris Stokes takes the checkered flag, a masterclass performance coming from 6th on the grid to dominate this field.
Clinical drive. He picked them off one by one, stayed cool under pressure, and never gave the others a sniff once he hit the front.
And what an incredible recovery from Elliot Norton, clawing his way from the back of the grid all the way to second at the line. Nigel Walters rounds out the podium in third, a rock-solid drive to hang onto that top 3 finish in a chaotic race. Adam Tias, David Constable Berry, Dominic Fulvargel, and Jody Fanon in 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th. That completes our main pack with Mull, Lemrich, Kruger-Dorado, and Nadine crossing the line in that order.
A real mix of fortunes there. Nadine will be looking back at that pole position and wondering what could have been after sliding all the way to 11th.
And rounding out the field, Neil Constable Berry, Greg Sabo, and Robert Cormack take the final spots to wrap up a seriously tough afternoon for all three. 7 minutes on the clock and still nothing from Stokes. He's wasting precious time sitting in the pits while everyone else is finding the rhythm through Corntaio. Sabo is still cooling his heels in the garage while the rest of the field is already pushing hard through Corntaio.
You don't want to be doing that this late in the session. You need those laps to settle the car and get a feel for the track temp.
Seven minutes to go, and Nadine hasn't even turned a wheel, which means he's going to be diving straight into a busy San Donato with cold rubber.
Sabo is really cutting it fine now, 7 minutes left, and he's just sitting there watching the field blast down the Rettilineo.
Stokes finally breaks cover and heads out of the pits, but with under 7 minutes left, he's got a mountain to climb if he wants to get a decent read on the grip levels at Pagliaseco. Constable Berry is finally firing up, heading out of the pits now.
He's going to be fighting for space immediately. San Donato is a nightmare to navigate when you're trying to find clean air on an outlap.
Nadine finally makes his way out, but he's got his work cut out for him, joining the session just as the field is pushing through Arrabbiata 2. Szabo finally finds some pace, jumping straight to the top of the timesheet with a 1 minute 49 seconds and 2 milliseconds.
Not a bad way to announce yourself. He's got the track position at San Donato now. Let's see if he can hold that lead as the others start their final push.
Fannin is finally hitting the tarmac, but he's already up against it, trying to find a rhythm through the high-speed sweep of Arrabbiata 2 with so little time left. Still nothing on the board for Neil Constable Berry. He's just joining the queue through Scarperia now.
He is leaving it incredibly late. You barely have time for a proper outlap and one flyer at this point.
Nadine is still crawling through the pit lane exit, barely clearing Arrabbiata 1 while the clock keeps eating away at his limited window. Mull finally rolls out of the pits, but with barely 3 minutes to play with, he's basically just going to be a moving chicane for the rest of the field heading into Arrabbiata 1. Sabo is still the one to beat, leading the pack down the Rettilineo, but with under 3 minutes remaining, he's going to have a target on his back for the rest of this session. Constable Barry putting in a solid shift, sliding into third with that 1 minute 51 seconds and 1 millisecond.
It's a respectable banker, but he's still nearly 2 seconds off the leader. He needs to find some serious time if he wants to challenge for pole before the clock hits 0.
Cormac is only just getting started, rolling out with barely 90 seconds left on the clock.
He won't even get a clean lap in before the flag drops, Hal. He's essentially just scrubbing tires for the race now.
Fannin finally clears the pits and is sweeping through Pelagio, but the clock is his biggest enemy right now.
He is absolutely chasing his tail. He won't get a representative time on the board before the session ends.
Constable Barry shaves nearly a second off his previous best as he dives into San Donato, but with only 30 seconds remaining, he's running out of road to make any further gains. Cormac is crawling through the final corner at Bucine, and that is the end of the session.
0 time to show for it. He's going to be starting this race completely blind to his own pace.
Stokes is finally out on track near Matarassi, but the clock is ticking down. He's not going to register a time before the checkered flag.
He's wasted the whole session, Hal. He'll be starting dead last, and he has absolutely no data to work with for the race.
Cormac is still sitting idle in the pits while everyone else is hunting for a final improvement. He's going to end this session with a big fat 0 next to his name. Nadine finding a bit of rhythm into San Donato, but 6th is all he has to show for it with just over a minute left on the clock. Stokes is finally showing some signs of life, flying down the Rettilineo, but he's left this until the absolute final hour.
It's too little, too late. Even if he crosses the line to start a lap, he won't get a full flyer in before the flag drops.
Let's get this qualifying session underway here at Mugello OSRW.
Strap in, folks, because we're in for a wild ride.
Five minutes left and still nothing from Fubargo on the board. He really needs to get a move on before this session slips away.
Lemrick is cutting it fine. A Rabiata one is no place to be nursing a car when you haven't even registered a banker lap yet.
Tyus is still sitting in the pits while the rest of the field is already chewing up their tires. He's leaving himself a massive mountain to climb here.
He's likely waiting for the track to rubber in, but with 4 minutes to go, he's running out of road to get those temperatures into the window.
Stokes is finally rolling out onto the red linea, but with under 4 minutes on the clock, he has one shot to make this count. Stokes flies to the top of the board with a 149.9. That's a decent benchmark to throw down.
Solid opening gambit, but he left enough time on the table there that he'll be looking over his shoulder for the final 2 minutes.
Tyus is finally making his move on the red linea, but with less than 2 minutes left, he has zero margin for error.
Lemrick is already 100th up on his previous best, and through the final stretch, he's definitely got the pace to climb out of 4th.
Stokes has found nearly half a second on this run. He's looking to reclaim that top spot before the flag drops. Constable Barry is pushing hard through Biondetti, carving 6/10 out of his time as we hit the final 40 seconds.
He's finding grip where there wasn't any before, but he needs to keep that car tidy if he wants to jump up the order at the very last second.
Constable Barry storms up to 5th with that effort, a massive jump in these final moments.
He timed that perfectly, kept his head down, and just squeezed the performance out of the tires when it mattered most.
Norton is flying down the red lineo. He's a 10th.5 up. This could be pole.
He's absolutely wringing the neck of that car, just needs to keep it clean through these last few meters.
Nadine is hauling that car down the red lineo a full second quicker than his previous effort, though he's still got a lot of work to do to escape the back of the pack. Stokes is shaving 5/10 off his time. He's desperate to jump back up into the mix before the checkered flag.
He's finding the limit, but he's got to be careful not to overdrive it now. One lockup on entry and that lap is finished.
Stokes finds enough to move up to 7th, but he's still nearly 4/10 off the pace we saw from the leaders earlier. Tyus is finally on the board in 5th, but he's already 400ths off his own pace as he navigates San Donato.
That's the problem with waiting until the dying embers. You have to find the rhythm immediately, and San Donato is a brutal place to start a flying lap.
Engines are screaming, fans are on their feet, and we are seconds away from lights out here at Mugello.
Martin Mall looks rock solid in that top spot, but leading the pack into the first turn here is a massive test of nerve.
Norton is tucked right in behind him, ready to pounce the second that gap opens.
You can bet Norton's already scanning for a cleaner line through the opening sector to try and rattle the leader early.
Greg Schreibo is holding down the second row, flying the flag for the AM class today.
Big ask for Szabo to hang with these two pros. He needs a clean launch to keep them in sight.
Tyus has his work cut out for him starting 5th, but he's got a clear view of the row ahead if he can just hook up a strong start. Fannin is lurking back in 6th, definitely the man to watch if he finds some clean air early on.
He's a nightmare to defend against, and these radicals, he knows exactly how to bully the car into those tighter apexes.
Gagan rounds out the 4th row. He needs to avoid getting tangled in the mid-pack chaos.
7th is a dangerous place to be. If the guys in front bunch up, He needs to have his braking points dialed in instantly.
Stokes knows he's got the pace to climb. He just needs to navigate the squeeze of that first corner without any drama.
Lemrick is buried in the pack here, and in these short wheelbase radicals, he's going to be fighting for every inch of tarmac once the lights go out.
Rounding out the top 10, we have Constable Barry, with a lot of heavy lifting to do.
He's got that Pro-Am experience to lean on, but from 10th, his race is going to be won or lost in how he manages the slipstream.
Kruger Dorado is just outside the top 10, looking to pick off some spots as soon as they reach the first turn.
He's got a long drag to the first braking zone. If he can tuck into a toe, he might just jump a couple of these guys before we even hit the apex.
Neil Constable Barry lining up at 13th, facing a wall of cars ahead.
Needs to keep his head here. Starting mid-pack is where you see the most contact when everyone tries to occupy the same piece of track.
Nadine completes the grid, looking for a clean getaway from the 7th row.
He's got a mountain to climb, but getting a good launch here is more important than pure pace for those starting in the thick of it.
And we are green, green, green at Mugello, and a fantastic launch from the front row.
Mull holds it, but Norton is absolutely glued to his gearbox through the run to turn 1.
Mull is holding the line beautifully, managing to dictate the pace while keeping Norton at a safe distance through the opening complex. Mull is looking incredibly composed, setting the tempo while the rest of the field sorts itself out behind.
He's taking the widest line possible to keep the engine load up and deny Norton any chance of a cheeky lunge under braking.
Huge progress for Lemrich, slicing through the field to jump all the way up to 5th.
Kruger Dorado has been clinical there, capitalizing on the chaos ahead to gain 2 spots already.
Kruger Dorado is certainly not hanging about. He's hunting down the cars ahead with real purpose. Thanon is holding firm in 6th, waiting for the front runners to start trading paint.
He's playing it smart. At this stage, it's all about staying out of the mid-pack turbulence and keeping his tires clean.
Jody Fannin has actually lost a spot to Lemrich, who has been on a charge, and now he is just 3/10 off the back of him.
That is a brilliant recovery drive from Lemrick, and you can see Fannin is already lining up a counterattack as they head into the next technical section.
Stokes is right on Fannin's tail, less than 3/10 splitting them as they hunt for a way past to climb into that top 6. Stokes tried to push the issue, but the gap has stretched slightly to 4/10 as they navigate the change in elevation.
Fannin is doing exactly what he needs to, using that dirty air to break the toe and keep Stokes at arm's length.
Walters is trying to muscle his way forward here, sitting just half a second behind Nadine as they push through the midfield traffic. Walters is showing some real tenacity, shaving a tenth off that gap to Nadine in the last few corners.
He's starting to find a rhythm, but he needs to be careful not to overheat the fronts while he's pushing that hard in the toe.
Gagan is keeping a cool head in 7th, but he's got Norton breathing down his neck with 7/10 of a buffer to defend. Gagan has really found his stride, stretching that lead over Norton out to nearly 2 seconds.
It looks like Norton might have had a messy moment through the chicane, giving Gagan just the breathing room he needed.
Constable Barry is dead level, with Norton on the main straight. This is going to be a drag race into the next corner. Norton is right on the gearbox of Constable Barry through Poggiasecco, just 3/10 separating them.
He's trying to force a mistake here, keeping his nose tucked in tight to disrupt the airflow as they head toward the next heavy braking zone.
Norton just couldn't quite find the space to make the move stick, and that gap has drifted back out to 4/10. Limerick is absolutely flying. He's within 2/10 of Fovarg and looking for a podium spot right now. It's a stalemate between them. Limerick is still sitting 2/10 back, waiting for any sign of a weakness from Fovarg.
He's smart to stay patient. These radicals are so sensitive to overdriving, and one tiny lockup from Fovarg in this heat will give Joel the opening he needs.
Fannin is absolutely locked onto Limerick's rear bumper, just 3/10 off the podium battle. Fannin has absolutely closed the door on that gap. He is now within a single 10th of Limerick.
He is putting him under immense pressure now, and you can see Limerick starting to defend slightly offline just to cover the inside.
Kruger-Dorado is breathing down the neck of Stokes, just 3/10 the difference as they hunt for a way into the top 5.
He is showing great composure. He is not rushing the move, just keeping the car right in Stokes, mirrors to force a mistake.
Fovarg is right in the thick of it through Sabella, glued to the rear of Limerick with just 2/10 separating them. Fovarg has pulled off a brilliant move to jump into second, and now he's got Limerick side by side as they fight to hold that spot. It's frantic out there today, Sky. The field is so tightly packed at Mugello you can barely breathe.
It's the nature of these radicals, Hal. Once you get that slipstream, you're never truly safe, no matter how good your defensive line is.
I noticed a few of the guys are really leaning on the curbs, probably pushing the suspension setup to the absolute limit.
Yeah, and it's taking a toll. I've been watching the midfield, and a couple of cars are starting to look quite unsettled under rotation.
It really highlights who's got the setup dialed in versus who's just trying to survive the next 5 minutes.
Exactly, and with the clock ticking down, that mental fatigue is going to start triggering some unforced errors in these final laps.
Tyus is really pushing the limits. Through Biandetti, he's tucked right up under the rear wing of Gagan with just 2/10 in.
He's been chasing him for a while now, and you can see Tyus is just waiting for Gagan to go slightly wide so he can dive for the apex.
Tyus has managed to clear Gagan, but that gap has absolutely exploded to nearly 20 seconds.
Something must have gone wrong for Gagan in that complex. He's dropped off the map entirely while Tyus just cruises into 12th.
Constable Barry is hunting down Nadine for 8th, just 3/10 the difference now.
He's keeping his eyes up, waiting for Nadine to get too aggressive on the throttle coming out of the slow corners.
Constable Barry seems to have lost his momentum. Nadine has managed to pull away, and that gap has stretched out to over 3 seconds. Fannin is absolutely glued to the back of Fauvargue, just 4/10 between them as they hunt for a podium spot.
He's keeping it clean for now, but I can see him testing Fauvargue's braking point, looking for a way to force a mistake before the penultimate lap.
No change in the interval. Fannin remains anchored 4/10 back from Fauvargue as they really start to push the limits of these tires. Stokes has got Kruger Dorado swarming all over his rear wing. Half a second the difference as they fight for fourth. Stokes is holding steady, but he's had to work for it, eking out another 1/10 of a second to put 6/10 between himself and Kruger Dorado. Fauvargue is right back in the mix. He's within a single 1/10 of Fannin now.
He's clearly found something in the car in the last sector. He's setting up for a massive lunge into this next turn.
Fauvargue tried to force the issue, but Fannin has managed to cover the line perfectly, pushing that gap back out to 2/10. Stokes is lurking in fourth, sniffing out a podium chance as he sits just 3/10 off the back of Fauvargue.
He knows if those two in front keep squabbling, he's going to be right there to pick up the pieces.
It is a game of high-stakes chess out there. Stokes still holding that 3/10 deficit as they navigate the closing stages.
He is biding his time perfectly. If he can force Fauvargue to compromise his exit, he might just snatch that third step on the final lap.
Fauvargue is still hunting Fannin for second, keeping the pressure on with just 2/10 separating them as the clock winds down. Fannin has managed to create a tiny bit of breathing room, extending that gap to 3/10 and forcing Fauvargue to rethink his strategy. Kruger Dorado is absolutely flying through San Donato. He's just 2/10 away from pinching fourth place from Stokes.
He's got the momentum, but he needs to be careful not to overshoot the braking point. That's an easy place to lock up when you're this hungry for a position.
Stokes knows the danger is right behind him, keeping that gap to Kruger Dorado at a tight 2/10 as we head deeper into the race. Stokes has managed to breathe a tiny bit easier, nudging that gap out to 3/10, but the pressure from behind remains absolutely relentless. During your racing career, Sky, how did you determine when it was the right time to pit for fresh tires due to tire degradation?
It was a combination of factors, Hal. Monitoring lap times, communicating with the team about tire wear, and assessing the car's handling were all crucial in deciding when to make a pit stop for fresh tires.
Stokes is right on the back of Fauvargue now, just 2/10 away from a potential podium finish. Stokes tried to make the move stick, but Fauvargue has defended well and extended that buffer to 4/10. Walters is right in the mix for 8th, sitting just 2/10. behind Nadine as they push through the final few minutes.
He is showing real patience here, but he needs to make his move soon, or he'll run out of runway before the checkered flag.
Walters is struggling to keep that momentum going, with Nadine finding an extra bit of pace to stretch the gap out to 4/10. Kruger-Dorado is relentless. He is all over the back of Stokes, just 3/10 separating them as we enter the closing stages.
He is showing his experience here, staying patient and waiting for Stokes to get too defensive and compromise his own line.
Kruger-Dorado has lost his rhythm, and that gap to Stokes has blown out to over a second, taking the sting out of that battle. Fauvargue is right in the mix for second place, with just 3/10 separating him from Fanon as the clock ticks down. Greg Chabot is absolutely cruising now, holding a comfortable cushion of nearly 3 seconds as he approaches the final stretch.
He's played a tactical masterclass today. He just needs to keep his head for these last few turns, and that win is his.
The leader has done it. What an incredible performance from Szabo, who is simply untouchable today. This is a race that will go down in the history books. Jody Fanon takes the checkered flag in second. What a sensational recovery drive from starting back in sixth.
He really managed those tires perfectly throughout the stint. Absolutely brilliant work to pick his way through that traffic and secure the runner-up spot.
And Fauvargue crosses the line to secure a hard-fought third, a well-deserved podium after being in the thick of that battle all race long. In 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th, it's Chris Stokes, Thomas Kruger-Dorado, Elliot Norton, and Joel Lemrich. Finishing 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th is Ben Naden, Nigel Walters, David Constable-Berry, and Neil Constable-Berry. Tyus brings it home in 12th, having fought through that mid-pack scrap for the duration of this one. Martin Mole in 13th. Windy day here at Mugello, and that's going to make the high-speed sections a real handful for these drivers.
You're not kidding, Hal. With 14 knots of crosswind, finding the balance through the fast sweepers is going to be a massive test of nerve.
Adam Tyus is looking rock solid in that P2 spot, lining up his radical perfectly for the start.
He's got the pace, but in that AM class, keeping his composure through the opening turns is the real challenge today.
Right behind Tyus sits Neil Constable-Berry, looking to pounce the second the lights go out.
And we've got the other Constable-Berry in P4. David's got a bit more experience under his belt in the Pro-Am class, so expect him to try and muscle his way forward early.
Walters rounds out the top 5. He's got a perfect view of the Constable-Berry brothers, and he'll be desperate to split them up before we hit turn 1. Ben Naden is lurking in 6th. He needs a clean getaway to stay in touch with the lead pack.
He's tucked in behind the main scrap, so if there's any argy-bargy in front of him, he's perfectly placed to clean up.
Joel Emmerich lines up 7th, right in the middle of that dense AM class train.
He needs to watch his spacing off the line. The radical gets twitchy if you get crowded into the first braking zone.
Thomas Kruger-Dorado starting from 9th. He's got a bit of work to do if he wants to challenge those Pro-Am front runners.
Chris Stokes is way back in 10th in that Pro entry. He is going to be breathing down the necks of these AM drivers before the end of the first lap.
Dominic Fovark sits 11th. He's got a mountain to climb, but plenty of talent to make up those places if he can find a gap early.
Don't count out Fannin back there in 12th. That Pro pace is going to be blistering once he gets clean air.
Greg Zabot is sitting back in 13th. He's got a long drag to the first corner to try and pick off a few positions.
He needs to be careful not to get caught up in the inevitable shuffling behind the leaders. Survival is the name of the game in that mid-pack scrap.
Niall Gagan brings up the rear in 14th. He'll be hoping for some chaos ahead to help him climb through the order.
Pole sitter Martin Moll looks comfortable at the front. He's got the Pro machinery to dictate the pace of this race from the word go.
And we are green at Mugello. Moll gets a lightning start, but Tyus is already putting him under immense pressure into the first corner.
Moll is holding the line beautifully, but he's already having to defend the inside to keep Tyus at bay.
Moll is showing why he qualified on pole, keeping his nose clean while the pack behind him is fighting tooth and nail.
He knows the importance of dictating the pace early, especially with those hungry radicals swarming behind him in the dirty air.
Tough opening for Sabo. He slipped to the back of the train and has a lot of work to do now.
He got pinched on the exit of that first turn, and in a field this tight, one small compromise ruins your entire sector.
Huge drop for David Constable-Berry. He's tumbled all the way down to 10th after that chaotic opening sequence. David Constable-Berry has really fallen off the pace, losing 6 spots on that opening lap.
He looked like he got caught in a sandwich going into the complex, and once you lose momentum there, you're just a sitting duck for the cars behind.
Thomas Kruger-Dorado has done a brilliant job picking his way up to 6th, and now he's sniffing the gearbox of Nadine, sitting just 4/10ths back. Stokes is glued to the back of Norton down the main straight, just 3/10ths splitting them as they hunt for a way through. Wait, Stokes is diving into the pits already? That is an incredibly early stop.
Either he's picked up some damage in that opening lap shuffle, or he's gambling on an undercut, but that's a massive risk with 9 minutes still on the clock.
Kruger Dorado is right in the slipstream of Nadine now, only 2/10 in as they hunt down the top 5. Kruger Dorado is relentless, keeping that pressure on Nadine as they navigate the middle sector.
He's sticking to the rear bumper, forcing Nadine to make a mistake. If he keeps this up, the position is surely his.
It's a proper scrap for 6th here. Fovarg is breathing down the neck of Kruger Dorado, just 2/10 separating them. Fovarg's lost a little bit of ground there. The gap has stretched out to 4/10 as they navigate the twisting section. As a former racing driver, Sky, how important is the relationship between a driver and their team during a race?
It's absolutely crucial, Hal. The team provides valuable information and support, helping the driver make the right decisions on track. A strong bond between the driver and the team can be the difference between winning and losing.
Fovarg is closing back in. He's clawed back a 10th on Kruger Dorado and is looking for a way through.
He's keeping his car steady, but he needs to time this perfectly. If he pushes too hard in the dirty air, he'll overheat those front tires.
Kruger Dorado has managed to snatch 5th place away, and now Fovarg is finding it tough to stay in touch, that gap opening up to half a second. David Constable-Berry is clearly on a mission. He's clawed his way up to 10th, and is now right on the gearbox of Nigel Walters. Walters has managed to weather that initial storm and pulled back out to a half-second cushion, holding Constable-Berry at bay for now. Joel Lemrich has absolutely flown through the field and is now breathing down the neck of Tyus, just 3/10 back.
He's flying through Pelagio, but he's got to be careful. That's a high-commitment corner, and tucking in behind a radical there makes the car incredibly light on the nose.
Lemrich is absolutely glued to him now. That gap is down to just a 10th.
He's got a massive run out of that last corner. He's going to have a look at the inside here for sure.
Neil Constable-Berry is working hard to bridge that gap, but he's still 6/10 behind Lemrich as they come to the final turn.
He needs to focus on his exit out of Houston, because if he doesn't get the power down perfectly, he's never going to have the straight line speed to mount a challenge.
Neil could be on a charge here. Sky, they have just put in a quicker lap than Joel Lemrich. Tyus has been pushed back to 3rd by Lemrich, and he's now working to keep the car stable, sitting 6/10 behind that 2nd place battle. Tyus is losing touch slightly. The gap has grown to 7/10 now.
He looks like he's losing a bit of tire grip, maybe pushed those fronts too hard earlier in the race.
Fovarg is putting everything he's got into this, closing back up to 4/10 behind Kruger Dorado.
He's finding a much better line. Through the technical sections now, you can see him carving out those small advantages.
Neil Constable-Berry is giving it everything, but he's got nearly a second to bridge to Tyus if he wants to steal that final spot on the podium. Matthias is really digging deep now, stretching that gap out to a full second as they head deeper into the lap. Kovarg is still hunting for fifth, holding that 4/10 gap to Kruger-Dorado as we tick down inside the final 4 minutes. Kovarg has really found his rhythm. He's slashed that gap in half and is now sitting just 2/10 behind Kruger-Dorado.
That's the kind of closing speed that unsettles a driver. He's perfectly positioned for a lunge into the next heavy braking zone.
Jody Fannin has quietly hauled himself up to 7th and is now hunting down Kovarg, just half a second between them.
Fannin is absolutely flying on this set of rubber. His pace is significantly stronger than the pack ahead right now.
Fannin has dropped back a bit. The gap to Kovarg is now up to 7/10.
He might have pushed too hard, too early to bridge that initial gap. Now he's got to manage his tire temps or risk sliding right back into the clutches of the cars behind.
Kovarg is holding firm in 6th. Fannin is keeping him honest with that 6/10 buffer.
Dominic is doing a great job of placing his car to defend, forcing Jody to go the long way around if he wants to make a move stick.
Fannin is absolutely glued to the back of Kovarg as they exit Busine, just 6/10 of a second separating them as they head into this next sequence. Fannin just lost a bit of time through that technical section. The gap to Kovarg is stretching out to 8/10 now. Kovarg is managing that 7th place threat well, keeping a solid 7/10 of breathing room as we push further into the stint. Kovarg is slowly pulling away here, extending his lead over Fannin to nearly a full second as we get deeper into the lap. Fannin is struggling to find the pace he had earlier, and that gap to Kovarg in 6th has now slipped out to over a second. That gap has ballooned suddenly to over 2 seconds. Fannin seems to have completely lost his rhythm.
He's definitely struggling with the rear end. On corner exit, you can see the car snapping away from him, and at this stage, he's just trying to bring it home safely.
Kovarg has turned his attention forward again. He's within half a second of Kruger-Dorado and looking to make a move for 5th. Kovarg is still sitting right in the wake of Kruger-Dorado, but he's having a hard time getting close enough to actually mount a challenge. Walters is trying to close the gap to David Constable-Berry down the main straight, but he's currently stuck over a second adrift. Walters is showing some real grit now. He has shaved a couple of tenths off that gap as they dive into the technical sections.
He is finding a tighter line through the apexes, which is smart, but he needs to ensure he does not kill his exit speed if he wants to make a real lunge for ninth.
Kovarg is throwing everything at Kruger-Dorado through Savelli. Just 4/10 in it as they push through the twisty stuff.
He's really leaning on the car now, but he's got to watch his steering inputs. If he gets aggressive with the wheel here, he'll just induce understeer and kill his chances for the run down the straight.
Walters is showing some real tenacity. He's clawed that gap down to just 6/10 as he continues to hound David Constable Berry.
He is definitely gaining confidence, but he has to be careful not to overcook the entry into these heavy braking zones, or he'll lose everything he's just gained.
Walters has lost some of that momentum. The gap is stretching back out to 9/10 as David Constable Berry manages to find a breathing room. Fovarg is right on the rear wing of Kruger Dorado as they power down the Renault, just 4/10 between them.
He is clearly setting him up for a late braking maneuver, but he has to make sure he does not lose too much momentum in the dirty air.
Walters is absolutely relentless. He has closed that gap down to 5/10 again, refusing to let Constable Berry run away with 9th. Walters is really turning the screws now. That gap is down to just 3/10.
He is showing brilliant composure in the braking zones. He's perfectly set up to make a move if Constable Berry makes even the slightest error.
Tyus is working hard to keep Fannin in his sights, holding a 7/10 gap as they trade times.
He needs to start taking some risks now if he wants to regain that lost ground, but the Radical is starting to look a little loose under rotation.
Fovarg has snatched 5th place away, and now he's looking to put the squeeze on Kruger Dorado with just 4/10 separating them. Martin Mall is staring down the final 20 seconds of this race, and he's kept his cool beautifully with Lemrick breathing down his neck.
He just needs to keep that Radical tidy for the final sector. He's got a second in his pocket, so as long as he doesn't try anything heroic, that win is his to lose.
And that is the checkered flag for Martin Mol, a dominant drive from pole to bring it home at Mugello.
Clinical. He absorbed all that early pressure and never looked like cracking. That is exactly how you manage a race from the front.
The sensational charge from Joel Lemrich, climbing all the way from 7th on the grid to secure a well-deserved 2nd place. Neil Constable Berry rounds out the podium, a steady and consistent drive, keeping him in the mix when it mattered most. Kruger Dorado holds on to 4th, ahead of Fovarg, Fannin, and Tyus as that train of cars crosses the line in a tense conclusion to the top 7. Naden, Walters, David Constable Berry, and Norton round out the top 11, a frantic finish for the remaining pack as they all cross the line in quick succession. Greg Sabo completes the field, bringing it home in 12th after a tough day at the office here at Mugello. Chris Stokes rounds out our classified finishers in 13th after that ambitious early trip to the pits.